Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Cool. Oh,
Like
you
that.
want to use it? Or use that one?
Is it going to work?
Yeah.
Does this one work? I might use the podium. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to my talk. Look, the video that's playing, there's a little bit of a backstory to this. The company that I work for is called Zip. We actually came out of stealth yesterday, so we sold our previous business and we spent a lot of money on this video. So we're now trying to cram it into every single presentation that we possibly can. And so that's why you're seeing it right now. So I'm plugging my business in at the moment. We do AI onboarding, which is why I wanted to speak to you today about what I'm here to talk about, which is how to actually drive AI agents into business and actually meet business, values and objectives. Can everybody hear me if I sound like this? Like, I have a very loud voice, so it's always a bit fun. Or I can use this as well.
That makes it easy. Let me move.
I might do that as well. I don't need that. I can just press the button. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so the name of this talk is AI agents that don't suck and how to actually drive business value from them. I wanted to start off with kind of just like giving a bit of the lay of the land, which is that there isn't a bubble in AI at the moment, but none of the shit anybody's making is working at the moment. And I think everybody here, like if you're sitting down here, you probably like resonate with that value a bit. AI is being crammed into you through every single direction. I think Microsoft has just recently gotten sued by the ACCC because of the whole Copilot fiasco about charging people more money for Microsoft 365 and not telling them that they could just downgrade to get rid of that AI feature because they were trying to get money back from that. And that's a clear indication about what we're seeing in the industry. So about on average, 40% of all IT projects fail. Or they have some sort of problem with it. That's what the Gartner statistics say, that you can take them as you will. We're seeing that that's double for AI projects. So AI projects are failing at double the rate of all other IT projects. And Gen AI is doing way worse with return on investment. It's like 95% of them can't do it. And mainly that's because there's been a huge growth in that phase. And we'll talk about some of the pitfalls about why these things are happening. And so you can avoid to be in these statistics, or at least on the good side of them. And that's kind of what we're doing. It's not a new problem either. Ever since like the really the big AI boom, I think for context, I was an AI engineer. One of the like if you know your history about AI, like the first really big like launch of this latest AI craze has come from AlexNet in 2012, I think it was, and that's when all the neural nets and all that kind of stuff has started. These are some like the high level examples of like where companies have just burnt large stacks of cash even before transformers were a big thing. And so this has been going on for like a long time now, which is like the three examples are IBM Watson. They made an oncology version of it. They teamed up with MD Anderson, which is a large oncology medical research place in the US. It didn't work basically because they just kind of said, let's just shove a bunch of cancer data into Watson and see how useful it becomes. Turns out it actually wasn't that useful, and most of the doctors actually thought it was a piece of shit. The Amazon decided to do the exact same thing with their resumes and said, we're going to put a bunch of our high-performing resumes into this bot, and then we're going to use that to hire people. It didn't hire any women or people of color. Wow, who could have seen that coming? To be fair, that was probably one of the more earlier examples of training bias going completely wrong, but it just goes to show you they put a lot of money into investing into this bot that basically was a racist. Sexist. And sexist, exactly, yeah, and probably a lot more phobes, but we'll never know they killed it. And then the last one I've got here is there was a when I was doing some research, I found out the Zillow Houses was doing this AI thing where it was flipping houses, and basically it just overestimated the price of houses, and so it was buying all these houses at above market rate, and then like $500 million of write-off, which is if you're making a lot of money, that's a great tax write-off, but if you're not, that's a lot of money. And I'm guessing we're all in Melbourne. I think most of you are all locals. There's not a lot of companies that I know of that can burn $500 million and still be okay. And so if you're building an AI project, you probably don't want to burn this much money. And so again, kind of going into how that works. The real kind of thing, which has accelerated this, is everybody's got a chatbot, and oh my God, they suck. So this is one from like the good old days of 2023 when ChatGPT, I think 2 was or 3 was the one that everybody was using. And yeah, some guy basically just got it to sell them a $70,000 car for $1 because they had no guardrails on it, right? And so you can imagine how many times that happens inside of these chatbots. I've still seen this happen in chatbots. So it's still a system of like, and I used to work in an AI data security company. That was the one that we sold previously. And our advice to people was, you actually can't fix this problem yet. Nobody has figured out how to solve the hallucination, like prompt injection problem. It's still like there's a percentage chance that this will still happen. Right. So, and we'll talk about that when we get to risk as well when we get into this. But yeah, the 3 high-level ones I want to talk about is like Chevrolet was the first one. Avianca is this case study from Colombia where they were suing the Colombian airline and they used ChatGPT to make the arguments, and it just made up case law. And then the judge sanctioned them. Like, it's like, what the hell are you doing? This is not a rare thing. Apparently, lawyers are getting very lazy with AI, using AI and just making up a lot of case law with this. And I think they've started to realize that's a big problem. But obviously, there are people who are going to be rushed and don't have a lot of time to do anything. And Google Bard was like another one, which was this one of like their first demos of like AI. And they did an ad where they were talking about something about the James Webb Space Telescope and about a discovery it made. And it turns out it was wrong. This was like a massive ad they pushed in the US, and then it just wiped a very large amount of money very quickly, mind you, off Google's alphabet share price. Yeah, and so when it comes down to it, like the big issue here is people are lying about return on investment. Is kind of one of the things when it comes to AI. So the spending is going nuts. There's a striking disconnect between the AI investment happening and the returns people are getting from that. Because everybody's like, oh, if we just inject AI into this, we can make our money back on how much the AI is. They want to win in the AI race, and then they'll jack the prices up later. Problem is, because of the way that AI innovation kind of works, it's a bit of an S spend. So everybody was thinking that it's going to keep going up like this. Really kind of goes like this. And so we're kind of plateauing a bit now. And so they're now trying to figure out how they can kind of get their money back. And when I say they are, I'm talking about like the large cloud providers, Google, Microsoft, Oracle to some extent. Everybody's trying to figure out, like, now that we've got all these large models, what are we actually doing with them? Again, some of the statistics I found when researching this, $2.3 billion, in spending in AI in 2023. That's now $13.8 billion if you own NVIDIA shares. Congratulations. Yet it's going nowhere, which is like Gartner finds that on average, it's about half the prototypes ever reach production. Which, when you think about it, like from a prototype perspective, that is kind of what prototypes are meant for. But in business, everything costs money. This is like, if this was a research institute, you might say that's a pretty good result. But if you're a business trying to make money, or at least, you're trying to, like, you have a job and your job is, is related to KPIs, missing half of your KPIs, like, which is what that is an equivalent of, is not great. And yeah, basically leading to no return on investment, which is the bigger issue, which companies are now starting to really look at when they're developing an AI system or an agent. What's the actual return on investment with that? So that's kind of like the high level of like what the scene is at the moment. Why most of them fail. These are the top 5 reasons that we've seen for AI agents failing. And again, I've just kind of done like a bit of a corpus of the internet, talk to customers. This is what we've been seeing has been happening. Misunderstanding the problem is kind of like one of the big first ones, which is the stakeholders aren't aligned on what the problem is that AI should solve. This is one of those things where AI engineers, product managers, and stakeholders/executives never talk to each other properly. As I've gotten like more and more into my career, I've started to realize that product managers actually do know what they're talking about, which is really like, if I could go back and talk to my like junior self, I would probably like not believe that. But it is kind of one of those things where like understanding how other parts of the business work is a really good, I guess, what synergy level that you really do need if you're going to be like an engineer designing things. The next kind of one is like lack of needed data. Turns out that all the data that people have been collecting just isn't very good. And one of the things, like I experienced this in my day-to-day job as well, which is, and one of the things that we struggle with is as we build AI agents, we're building them for our customers. The data they provide us is at a high level, we're doing a lot of like building, like absorbing help centers and like, Wikipedias and things like that, personal like individual companies have. And just the data on it doesn't really describe the processes that we need to emulate. And so it comes down to we have to actually get them on a call. We record the call and actually ask them like questions about it. And that we use that as data. And so it's been a whole thing of like, actually, nobody's storing the correct data. Infrastructure shortcomings. This is meant to be the Kubernetes room. You could probably, I think there's been a lot of talks today about like Kubernetes and AI. And there's a lot of different interesting takes on that. I don't consider myself an expert on Kubernetes, so I'm not going to kind of talk too much about that. But a lot of it is that, AI and Kubernetes are hard. Kubernetes is hard, right? And so trying to build a hard system on top of a hard infrastructure project, there's going to be problems, right? And a lot of companies are facing that as well. Tech focus over user focus. Again, we could just inject AI into these things. Wouldn't that be cool? Not really understanding how users will actually use the technology, right? From an end use perspective, nobody cares about Kubernetes. Nobody cares about if you use Vercel or Amplify or whatever your cloud stack is, right? As long as it works, then people don't care, right? And that's a thing that senior people will tell you if you listen to them after like the 10th year. But you have to survive that. And then the other one is kind of attempting the impossible, which is again, people think that AI will be able to solve all of your problems, and it's vastly, and the thing again, I say about this about like GPT and things like that. It's just a random number machine backed by a big dictionary, and so you have to really put into like that's all transformers are, right? Like they're giant Markov chains. And so you have to really consider what are the types of problems that this technology can solve. And they might not be able to, solve all these problems. Sam Altman and Elon Musk have a vested interest in telling you that they have achieved AGI. Maybe they haven't, and they definitely haven't. But it's always good to be a bit skeptical about what the people are saying. Yeah, and this really comes down to like what we're seeing as the big problem is like agents are built without clear business problems. And so I guess my takeaway to any engineers in the room is, the business comes first. Many people become, they become expensive science experiments. That's kind of not what your business is looking for. You need to really hone in on what that is going to be. The two examples I've kind of got here of this is there was a major bank that developed an AI virtual assistant because their competitors had one. Their customers weren't asking for a virtual assistant, but because their competitors all had an AI agent, they had to have one of them as well. And it just ended up answering FAQ questions, which might be a useful use of time, but it also might have just been better to point people to an FAQ page. I have been finding that every website I go to now has this damn pop-up of a chatbot in the corner that keeps asking me if I want help, but then also asks, I need to put my name and my number in for some reason to get help. And it's horrible, especially because a lot of them now, because they're trying to push AI on you, when you press the minimize button, you go to another page, it pops open again because you want AI, don't you? Right? And this is the world that we live in. First, it was like the cookie banners. It's now the chat box that's opened as well. And the other one is like, again, go back to that IBM example that I was using before. They push it into the hospitals without a lot of thinking about the workflows. Again, they just kind of went to doctors and said, here's this new AI, it will do things for you. And the doctor's like, well, I have a process right here. And it works really well. To give a counterexample for what IBM did, there's a small little Australian startup called Hardy Health that has been doing really cool stuff in this space. There's a whole other bunch of like scripting companies as well. So there's a whole industry here. But the difference what those kind of companies are doing as a good example of how AI works is they've gone into all of these doctors' clinics and gone, how are you taking notes. We want to understand the process that you're doing. And then they fit the AI to work in the way that they do it. So they have like, a thing that runs in the background. The doctor doesn't have to think about it. The doctor doesn't have to be very specific or have to talk about only, medical stuff. The scribes will automatically figure out what is medical and what is small talk and separate the two and do things like that. And so again, very intuitive for them to use. Again, and the other one, the main one is like data foundational issues. So going down to it again, with Amazon's example, if you put garbage into your system, you are going to get garbage out. Like if you put bad training data in, you will get bad training data out. That's probably like, I think something that people are very aware of, but they don't think they can do anything about it. So if somebody came to you today and said that you need to build an AI system, one of the first things that you need to be thinking about is, okay, well, what's the data that I'm going to be using for this? Is it our own internal data? Is it up to the spec that I need it to be at? Is it, like what is the prompting of this AI agent going to be and how does it work? And so putting all of those things together is like a really important aspect of that. One of the things like I'll highlight again from this is, again, IBM Watson couldn't ingest like doctors' text notes or their patient data. They actually changed systems at a bunch of hospitals midway through the trial, and then just Watson couldn't ingest any new patient data. So then suddenly it was like, oh, well, actually, like I'm just going to recommend old cancer treatments for people. And that's, again, one of the main problems that they had with that. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it, which was kind of one of the things I wanted to point out. A big takeaway that I want people to get out of this is before you build an AI agent, you really need to define the success metric for it, or like what you are trying to build for. I'll kind of get to that when I talk about like the key takeaways from it. You want to have some concrete success metrics before you build it. That's something that maybe in like Agile, we don't do a lot of anymore. We kind of just go in this direction and we kind of like get a little bit more precise the closer we get to the objective. You kind of don't want to do that with AI, or at least you want to have a very clear pathway to what the business case is that your AI is trying to solve for. Some great examples of this, I think, are these videos. I don't know if anybody has seen this. I'll see if the volume goes up.
From the Taco Bell, what can I get started for you today?
Can I get 18,000 water cups, please?
So it's like asking if you have 18,000 water cups, and then the AI just immediately fails because it just wasn't expecting that input. I don't know if anybody's seen that video. That one cracks me up. It's very fun. But it's the idea that like, again, you're kind of just like, if you throw AI into everything, people are just going to try and break it and abuse it. And so you really need to be able to measure kind of what people are using your AI for as well. So something to consider thinking about. No, we don't want to do that. We want to keep going. If I could define like the premise of this talk, this is what I want people to take away. People don't want to buy a 1/4-inch drill. They want to buy a 1/4-inch hole. This is this was done by the Harvard Business School, I think it was, where we got this quote for. I don't think it originally came from there. What do we mean by this? Is that when you're designing, an AI agent, people don't want an AI agent. They want to solve a problem, right? So fundamentally thinking about what your customers want to use your product for. Again, selfishly using my company as an example, we're building a activation agent. And so one of the fundamental changes that we had is we were building an AI agent, but then we realized that we're not actually selling to businesses an AI agent. We are selling them activated customers on their platform. The AI agent is going to activate customers for their platform, for their users, right? And so the switching of how we thought about how the business problem also changed how we thought about the agent, because we actually completely rebuilt a lot of how the agent was working at that time, because we were more focused now on delivering that value for a customer instead of just delivering them an AI agent. Okay, I'm gonna kind of start going through this a little bit more quickly, but one of the big ones was, so like, well, how do the pros do this? Like, how do the leading companies like define and measure business value? They do it in a pretty standard way. So if you're an engineer, you might not have come across these. All the project managers might have, which is that you want to define revenue, you want to define the cost and the risk and what the customer satisfaction is, right? At a high level, those are the four kind of like quadrants of what your AI agent needs to solve. So is it going to increase revenue? Is it going to decrease cost? It's probably going to increase risk. Are those enough to mitigate, the other two? What are some good metrics to actually measure that success that you want to adopt? These are pretty high level ones. These are good ones. These are pretty standard ones that I think everybody has kind of seen. I put a comparison here of how Google measures different parts of how they adopt. Sorry, I put an image here about how Google's model system works, about like having first party ones versus open source models, because this is a risk level that you need to consider as well. Like if you're defining a model, this is why actually coming up with the business case first can affect the model that you use, because you might decide that running an open source model is a higher risk than just running Gemini or something like that, because of the different ways that you can run it on different cloud providers and such. Again, I'll talk really quickly about this. Yeah, response resolution time, cost per transactions or interactions. I think these are all pretty like self-explanatory. I think one of the more interesting ones is user satisfaction, because that's quite abstract to measure. Some companies might track an AI agent, like that handles, you might want to be able to handle 60% of your customers' input. You might want to handle the lowest 60% of revenue customers with an AI agent, and then spend the other 40% having like customer success managers work on that. And what you want to be able to do is again, going back to those metrics, is clearly define how you are going to like define who those customers are and set the agent to go for them. Another kind of big part of that is user adoption. People want intuition. The reason that ChatGPT and Anthropic and Claude have done so well is because they're really intuitive to use. Thinking again about your AI agents as you're building them, what's the intuition that comes with them? The high level of that is there's a design and there's a 4-level design framework that you can use for this. So starting with the workflow and not the model, designing for context and constraints, pilot for adoption and not demos, and measure early and iterate fast. I've kind of talked about these points. I've told I don't have a lot of time left. Unfortunately, I did have some quick points on those. The ones I'll say for this is, start with a workflow, not the model. Again, avoiding AI for AI's sake is a really good one. Designing for context and constraints. You want to make sure that you have proper guardrails when you're building your AI agents. So thinking about how the memory is stored, thinking about how you are able to talk about different customers in a business context. So like, are you sharing context between customers? Something to think about. Pilot for adoption and not demos. Again, a lot of times when the first iteration of an AI is created, it's a really basic model, and there's no consideration of security, or there's no consideration of scale when it's built. Now, you don't have to think about those things when you first build it, but it is something that if you want to go to production, you have to have a plan for how you're going to address those considerations. And so you need to make sure that you don't end up in like purgatory, where you've built this amazing demo, but it doesn't meet the technical requirements that you need to get to production. And then the final one is like, your first version is going to suck. You just need to iterate. And that's something that is with all code. And it's something that I think individually we all like have to try and deal with. And that is the main aspect of that. High level takeaways that come from that is, as I kind of said, don't just add AI to everything. Come up with your success criteria before you make the AI, and make sure you keep iterating on that process so that you can make sure that you're actually connected to your business outcomes. Again, high level, I work for a company called Quarterzip. We're doing an offer today. If you go to quarterzip.ai/don't suck, you can get some free credits for our company. And again, like I said, we just launched yesterday, and play around with our agent and book a demo. I'm going to skip these because they're all just fluff. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate the talk. And if you've got any questions, please come.
That was a very insightful talk. Yeah, thank you, Robert, to share to join us to do the sharing session.